content. You're 5 minutes into a presentation and you realize, oh no, I forgot to press the record button. So we are recording now, but these were nurse educator colleagues that we did meet at the NLN Summit. We always enjoy meeting you all in person. We will be at the ATI Summit next month, as well as the NLN Summit later this year. So stop by, or if you see any of us in passing, because I know several of the advisory board members will be at these upcoming conferences as well. But we always love putting names with faces in person. So who we are is very simple. We are a company that is on a mission to increase the number of nurse educators that are certified. We have supported more than 5,000 nurse educators on their journey over the past 2.5 years. That's the official timeline that we have been in business. And then even before that, as part of the curriculum development that we were working on, we supported nurse educators through focus groups and through one-on-one coaching as well. So that's a little bit about who we are. And our focus today is really about you, right? You all are here for the same reason, and that is to become a certified nurse educator. So you are in the right place. Depending on your time zone, it's the middle of the day or early morning for some of you all, but you're in the right place because you are in a community of like-minded individuals that have the same mission, either to become a better nurse educator or to achieve certification. Remember that NLN talks about certification being the mark of professionalism. Not sure about you all, and I'm going to find out who's in the room shortly. But for me, that was an 8-year journey. You know, life happens, kids, graduate school, actually 2 graduate school experiences. And so our focus is to keep you focused moving forward, whatever that looks like for you. We're going to talk about some of the experiences that many of our nurse educators have had, whether it's our CNE in 60 days program, or our 7-week study plan, or even for some others, 6 to 9 months, whatever that journey looks like for you. We just want you to know that we are here to support your success. Speaking of success, our numbers are not good right now. 64% is the reported success rate or pass rate as reported by NLN in 2022. We're headed in the wrong direction. In 2020, it was reported to be 69%. Okay, and we right now, and we monitor our success rate in a 90-day cycle. We have 100% success rate for nurse educators that we have supported. And we ask for you all to send us feedback. Sometimes we don't even know some of the nurse educator colleagues that are reviewing our content. And so we want to hear when you're going to take your exam. We know that it can be very anxiety producing to have a date on your calendar. And we all have been there. There's an advisory board that supports our curriculum, and you'll see some of their faces as well in our programs. And our mission really is to help you decrease your anxiety, right? That's what being prepared for the exam will do. That's what we tell our students. And 64% failure rate or pass rate really is attributed to the fact that as nurse educators, and this is from NLN, the update that they shared last year in Las Vegas, is because many nurse educators show up without using the resources or the specific blueprint that NLN produces in order to be successful on the exam. So it's all around preparation. 75% for the CNE CL. Okay, so we know that there's some work to do. If you're feeling like this, and you don't know where to start or feeling frustrated, our responsibility is to help decrease your frustration, decrease your anxiety. Okay, so that's what we're talking about today. And then how do you move forward? The pathway to success really is in 3 categories based on the nurse educators that we have supported. One pathway, which is ultimately our goal, is that you will be able to get better, right? Every step of the way, we are supporting you. We establish a community here at Dr. Sellars Educate, and we can do that in a number of ways, and we're going to talk about that today. Or you kind of plateau. Again, my journey was 8 years. I had the best intentions, but one thing was very clear when it comes to my path. I wanted to make sure I was ready. You know, the CNE exam is expensive, not to mention the emotions that you feel when you're not successful. We're nurse educators for a reason. We have high standards and we want to accomplish every single goal that we seek to achieve, okay? And then some of our nurse educators plateau. In fact, I was talking to a dean just last night. She went through the January cohort of the CNE in 60 days. Well, she had to submit 4 applications to regulatory bodies. Okay, so she had the best intention, but of course our academic programs and the support of our faculty take priority. So she now has a very clear plan, right? We have pushed it out till April, and that's okay. We want to make sure that you have the resources and the support and ultimately the knowledge that you need to be successful on the exam whenever you decide to take it. So I knew, even though it was an 8-year process for me, that I wanted to be prepared, because my goal, just like I'm sure all of you all, is to take the exam once. Remember that even if it takes you more than one time, we will support you until you cross the finish line. We have had nurse educators that have come to us after their second attempt. Right now, I think that is the most attempts that nurse educators have come to us for support, but they consistently have all passed with their third attempt. Okay, so again, this is a no judgment zone. We are here simply to help you be successful. And then the dropout is the other pathway. And there are a lot of contributing factors to that. In fact, I want to hear from you all in just a second about what your journey has been like and what are some of those barriers that get in the way. We always learn just as much from you all as you all learn from us. And really, this is all about guiding your path. That's what our programs do. They simply guide you. Much of the content that we cover in all of our reviews and our programs, pretty much we already know. It's just a matter of kind of dusting it off to make sure we're clear about where our gaps are related to the competencies that are outlined by NLN. And then how do we close those gaps so that we can move forward and actually sit for the exam? All right, so let's take a quick poll. This is an attempt to find out who's in the room. So if you all can just participate in the poll, I know some of you may be multitasking. This is a way, again, to increase engagement when you're doing webinars or even in class. So let's see who's in the room. My current nurse educator role is an undergraduate nurse educator, a graduate nurse educator, a hospital nurse educator, or a nurse educator in other setting. And then years of experience as a nurse educator. 1 to 5, 6 to 10 are the options, 11 to 15 or 16 plus. Just like to see who's in the room. So we'll wait until we get to at least 70% participation, and then I'll go ahead and close the poll. And I didn't mention it, but I'm actually in Greensboro, North Carolina, for those of you that are in the area. We will also be attending NCNA this year, so we'll be excited to have another opportunity to meet some of you. And we do like to let our nurse educator colleagues when we're going to be attending conferences, and so you may see those updates start to come out as well. All right, so let's go ahead and close the poll. It looks like we have 97% or 92% participating, which is a great participation rate, so I appreciate that. So 79% of you are at the undergraduate nurse educator level, so that's awesome. And then nurse educators in other setting, 13%. And what I would say to that group is what we have found based on our research, and we're going to talk about the success framework. But the foundation really is that baseline information that you need to know in order to support you on this journey that we're talking about. One of the contributing factors based on our research, as well as NLN's, is that when you have less than 3 years of experience, it can be a little bit more challenging to be successful on the exam. Now, it doesn't mean you can't be successful. It just means that you're going to spend more time reviewing that content. Perhaps some additional resources we would recommend to make sure you're going to be successful the first time. Okay, and then for graduate nurse educators, we have 8%. And then the reason why I talk about not only years of experience, but also the setting is because when you are on the journey for the CNE, it is heavily focused on the academic setting. And then when you are on the journey for CNE-CL, it's heavily focused on that clinical faculty role, okay? So if you're in a different setting other than those two, again, it doesn't mean you can't be successful. It just means that you probably wanna have a more specific plan, and we can help you with that. We offer a complimentary 15-minute coaching session to any nurse educator. So highly encourage you to take advantage of that. I will put that in the email follow-up as well. All right. And then looks like years of experience. Wow, we have some great experience on the call today. We have 38% of you with 1 to 5, 25%, well, actually 50% total between 6 years and 15 years, which is awesome. And then 13% of you have 16 plus years. So that's excellent. What that tells us is that you all already have a really solid foundation that you're building on to help you move forward, which is wonderful. And those of you that may be in that 1 to 5%, again, it doesn't mean you can't be successful. It just means that we're probably going to spend more time focused on specific areas to help you move forward so you don't get stuck. All right, so what's stopping you, speaking of being stuck? Now we're going to go out to poll everywhere. I'm curious to see in the chat how many of you have experience with poll everywhere. If you want to just put in the chat for me, yes or no, whichever is appropriate. All right, and I'm not sure if you can still see my screen. Looks like you can. All right, so if you can share, what one word would you say describes what is stopping you from taking the CNE, CNE-CL, or CNE novice exam? Okay, no idea what you're talking about. Okay. Okay, so if you want to participate in the poll, if you haven't used poll everywhere before, because we're going to do a word cloud. Not sure how many of you have done a word cloud before, but you're just going to respond on your phone, or you can put in the web browser, pollev.com. Hopefully you all can see that at the very top. And then the slash mark Bridget Sale 263. And I'll do it with you so you can see what it looks like. Or you can use your cell phone. And what you're going to do, this is a fun activity to do with students too. Word clouds are one of my favorite. I actually wrote an article about the effect of word clouds and really the impact. And so you can actually Google my name and you'll see, if you just put Bridget Sellars word cloud, you'll see an article. So let's go ahead. What you want to do is you want to go ahead and put 37607 is the text number. Okay, so you can just put that where you would put the phone number. So 37607. Okay, and then you're going to put whatever word. Okay, so I'll share a word that some have shared with me. All right, so time is one word that I've heard. Let's see if it's working. Okay. All right, so when you put in 37607, looks like somebody's figured it out. Then you would text, you would put in that field as if you were texting somebody. You're going to put Bridget Sale 263. All right, and that will link you to this poll. All right, very good. We'll get a few more responses and then we'll see. I'll talk a little bit about what this word cloud indicates. Hello, glad you all could join. I know that it's a lot going on right now. Some of you are on fall break or spring break, I should say. Okay, schedule next month. That's awesome. Time, okay. Excellent. Looks like everybody's getting the hang of it. Sometimes poll everywhere can take a minute too, just to cycle through. Peer buy-in. Oh, that's an excellent one. I haven't seen that one before. That's wonderful. We are hearing about more nurse educator colleagues that are kind of being the champion or the role model and really the cheerleader for others to take the CNE exam. I actually was speaking to two deans this week and a program director, and they are stepping out and to be the first certified nurse educator within their nursing program, which I think is wonderful. Excellent. All right, so we'll go ahead and close the poll. And let me tell you a little bit about what you're seeing happen now. So you all can clearly see that time is the largest font. That means that time has had the most response in this word cloud. So the more votes, if you will, or the more words, the more times that specific word is posted in the text or in the chat, then that word gets larger and larger. Okay, so we saw time get bigger and bigger, right, which isn't surprising. I've shared earlier, for those of you that may just be joining, it was on my bucket list for 8 years. And I think some of that really stemmed from As a very young nurse, I understood the value of being certified, but I was always terrified of the CNE. Not sure if some of you all can relate to that or not. So because I was so terrified, I just kept putting it off. I wanted to make sure that I was 100% ready to take the CNE, and I did not want to have to take it more than once. Okay, so very good. Excellent. So thank you all for participating in the poll for the whole webinar. Yes, you will be able to watch it later. So now let's go ahead and go back to our content. We are going to continue to use our Canva presentation slide. And the other thing you can do, just so you know, when it comes to Poll Everywhere, you can actually turn off the responses at the bottom. Okay, so that way there won't be any more responses collected. Okay, you can lock it. And the thing I like about Poll Everywhere is that it's free. Okay, you can purchase different levels, but the free version is plenty for you to be able to do some of the active engagement teaching strategies that we talked about. All right, so what are we going to cover today? Resources, because we know that's very important for you to be successful. Okay, having the right resources, not only from a time perspective, but also from a financial perspective, because let's be honest, textbooks are expensive. We do know, though, just like we tell our students, without the right resources, you are going to struggle to be successful. Okay, the resources we recommend, which we're going to take a look at in a second, are aligned with what NLN recommends. We are not endorsed by NLN. We simply believe that NLN gives us all the recommendations we need and all of the resources in order to be successful. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the CNE history, as well as prep courses that we highly recommend to ensure you're closing your knowledge gaps. One of the struggles that we've talked about, there are three main ones that we're going to hit on today. First is not knowing where to start, right? We just saw that frustrated gentleman in a couple of slides previously. Step one is what we recommend. It's a 3-step process, starting with your self-assessment, okay? And we are going to talk about the resources that you should use that are free. That starts with the candidate handbook that is published by NLN. It's usually updated every single year. So if you'll go over to their website, nln.org, and then you go to the very top, NLN certification, you will see information about each of the exams. And when you click on that page, we're just not going to the website in the interest of time right now, but you're going to see a candidate handbook for each of the exams. Okay, we want you to print that out, and you are going to use the detailed test blueprint to complete your self-assessment. Okay, that's the free option. We want you to go through every single competency and sub-competency. There are 75 sub-competencies for CNE, okay, just as an example. And then there's 50 or so for CNE, CL, and for CNE novice. We want you to go through every single sub-competency. We want you to put a circle, an asterisk, or highlight any concept that you are not 80% competent in. Okay, it is subjective, and we always want to err on the side of being more conservative. So if you think, oh, maybe I'm about 50, 60, circle it. Okay, that's going to help you stay focused on content area that you want to go back and review under step 3. Okay, the latter part of step 3. SAE is the self-assessment exam. I will go ahead and share that we recommend that. It's published by NLN. It's 65 practice questions. We recommend that for nurse educator colleagues if you're in one of the 2 categories. Okay, first of all, if you have a lot of test anxiety, and it's been a while since you've taken a computerized exam, we highly encourage you to take the SAE. Okay, you would have to purchase through NLN. We have found that about 50% of nurse educators have determined that it was very helpful. However, you will see on the NLN website, there is no correlation between how you score on that SAE and your success, your ability to be successful on the CNE exam, okay? It is simply a way for you to decrease your anxiety to help you feel more confident when you sit for the CNE exam. You're also going to hear me talk today about the competency area for the CNE exam, CNE novice, CNE clinical. It's about 80%, okay? So the weight of your knowledge, your experience is about 80% of the exam, okay? The other 20% is mindset and you being confident that you indeed are ready. You have all of the information you need to ensure that you're going to be successful. Okay, so it's 80% content review to ensure you're closing those knowledge gaps related to competency, and that 20% is mindset. Taking the SAE, if you have a lot of test anxiety, will help you get closer to that 20%. Okay. And then the second group of nurse educator colleagues that really do find the SAE helpful is if you do want to take a look at more practice questions. The SAE is developed by NLN exam writers for the CNE exams. Okay, so you couldn't get any better than that if you want to go to the source and take a look at some practice questions. I will share that many of the questions on the SAE are not designed in the same way as the CNE, but again, it will give you great information if you choose to purchase the SAE, totally up to you, because you will get a scoring report, okay, at the end, and you will be able to see where your gap areas potentially may be based on the questions on the SAE. Remember, there's only 65, okay, even though there's 150 exam questions on the CNE, CNE, CL, and CNE novice. So 150 questions, which we'll talk about shortly, and you have 3 hours to take the exam. Now, 150 of those CNE exam questions do include 20 unscored, but we don't know which 20 are unscored, so we treat every question as if it's scored. We highly recommend that you commit to registering for the CNE, okay, as step one, because you all are serious. You didn't come here today just to hang out and to see who was going to show up, right? You came here because you are serious about moving forward with your CNE journey, okay, and we're here to support you. Step two, we want you to purchase your resources. And then the other caveat I will add about registering for the CNE, you still have 90 days after you get approved, okay? And they're very responsive right now. So 1 to 2 days, you should receive a notification that you have been approved and you meet the eligibility requirements to move forward. So step two is purchasing those resources. Now you will see level one is what we've listed out here. Those are nurse educator colleagues that either have less than 5 years of experience, or you feel like that you have a large number of gap areas when you take the self-assessment using the detailed test blueprint that is in the candidate handbook, okay? So for level one, we want you to really have more one-on-one time, more of a committed community to help you be successful, okay? So that's the only difference between level one and level two is that we recommend a live review and we recommend private coaching, okay? In our CNE in 60 days program, and we just started our second one this year in March, and we'll be launching our third one in June, which I'll talk about later. That includes everything listed in level one, plus weekly sessions, okay? So that's level one. Or level two, if you feel like, I feel pretty good about 50% of the subcompetency areas, that's great. Then we recommend a self-paced review and complementary coaching. And one thing I can tell you about Dr. Sellars Educate, if we don't feel like you need a resource, we're not going to recommend it to you. We actually had a nurse educator that reached out to us, I guess it's been about a month ago now, and said, oh, I just found you. I've already purchased a self-paced review course. I hate I didn't see yours first. Should I purchase yours? No, use what you have already. You've already spent your money, so use that one. And we gave her some tips and she was successful. So we were super excited. She watched our YouTube episodes because those are available for free. We do have more comprehensive YouTube episodes, obviously, that are private. And then step three, have your study plan, okay? 3 to 6 months, whatever that time frame needs to be for you. The most important step in this process, other than getting your resources, is carving out the time that you need in order to commit to closing your knowledge gaps. For CNE, just as an example, we outline in our study plan 140 hours of content that you will be reviewing, okay? Because again, part of the journey is being very intentional in how you move forward. That is called deliberate practice, okay? And if you saw our little update, then you already know that we're going to be talking about that today. We like to share our success stories too, because as great as we have, it's great of the effort that we have put in developing our curriculum. We want to make sure that our nurse educator colleagues are being successful, right? And we want to put their stories in front of you. You can actually see full testimonials on our YouTube channel. And then if you go to Dr. Sellars Educate Business site on Google, you will see our reviews there as well. So we want to be as transparent as possible. So this nurse educator colleague sent us an email right away. She says, I want to express my gratitude to you for providing this educational platform for those of us seeking to obtain certification in nursing education. Your guidance on developing and executing a focused study plan with emphasis on identifying gaps was amazing. The plethora of resources and study materials that you have compiled right down to the exact page numbers is truly impressive and was extremely helpful. I purchased the CNE and CNECL self-study courses, study guides, SAE, and books by Billings and Halstead and Schellenberger. And I'm happy to report that I passed both on the first try and could not have done it without you. I am a bad procrastinator, I can relate, and waited until the last minute to study for the CNE. Taking your advice, I executed my study plan over a three-day period. Yes, you see that correct. And was able to pass the test. Needless to say, I did not make the same mistake with the CNECL. I will continue to utilize your videos and resources and have already spread the word to my colleagues and former classmates. So we love hearing this story because, again, we track it because we want to make sure that we are having an impact and making a difference. So if you're like me and many others on our advisory board, you have limited time, right? Just like you're showing up here today, I'm sure there are papers you can grade, discussion forums you could be responding to. Our goal is to maximize the time that you have. We all have the same 24 hours, so we want to be able to use your time in an effective, productive way, okay? And that is what brings us to our 7-week study plan. We walk through every single week. We have listed here an example of a 7-week study plan, but we want you to be able to do that self-assessment, right? You see, that's week 1, is you purchasing your resources and completing that self-assessment using your free resource, the detailed exam blueprint in your candidate handbook published by NLN, right? You're going to identify your gaps. And then starting with week 2, you're going to review the modules. If you're taking our self-paced course, that's what we mean by modules. If you decide that you're at a point where, you know what, I think I can do this more independently with some help, we would highly recommend you meet us for a monthly boot camp to ensure that you indeed are going to have the content that you need to help you be successful. Remember, this is all about maximizing the time that you have to study. We carve out during our monthly boot camp, which is now, we are a provider, so we're able to award 1 contact hour for our monthly boot camp. The sessions are recorded. We usually have for sure 1 session every month, but we do have bonus sessions as well. We look to hear from you all about what specific content areas you may be struggling with, and we cater that to the community, okay? Dr. McClellan, just as a sidebar, when we talk about community, I just want to emphasize how important that is. Dr. McClellan is a researcher that really looks at success and how people working together can be successful. His research talks about the fact that we are successful based on the people that we spend the most time with. Specifically, we're 95% more likely to be successful when we surround ourselves with a community that will support us. That's huge. We talk about that with our nursing students, and it's no different than when we are on our journey towards CNE. But let's be honest, there's shame, right? And there's fear associated with not being successful on the exam. So we maintain your confidentiality. We don't share with others about your journey unless you want us to, or unless you come on and to one of our episodes and you share that with the group. All right, so the purpose of sharing this 7-week study plan is to just see, and so you could see an example of what that plan actually looks like. And then you notice at week 7, that is our wrap-up time. That is
Sellars.
I'm sorry, can you see my screen? No?
Oh, we can't see it.
Thank you. Have you all been able to see it the whole time or no? Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for speaking up. Sometimes with poll everywhere, it just doesn't show back up. So thank you for telling me. All right, very good. I think we're all set now. Looks like the tech team is telling me we're set. Okay, thank you. All right, so let me see. Did you all miss? Okay, so I think you just missed the clock. Being able to maximize your time. And so now you all can see the 7-week study plan. All right, very good. So this is, again, laying out week by week. That's what we want to do in order to maximize your time, what you're going to focus on. The part that you will add as an example is under week 2. We want you to be able to identify exactly how many hours for week 2, whether that's 7 days or 14 days. Ideally, we want to really have a strategic plan using a 7-day week cycle. But for many nurse educators, it may mean that week number 2 is 14 days. Okay, so that's okay. Again, the goal is that you continue to move forward until you get to week 7, even if that's technically week 10 for you. That's where you're going to identify your remaining top 3 gap areas. Okay, part of the barrier and really confusion that we have when we're on this journey is that there's so many concepts to study, right? Remember, I talked about with CNE, when you look at that detailed test blueprint, there are 75 sub-competencies. Yes, there are 8 competencies that provide this general information in these categories under those 8 competencies. But then there's 75 sub-competencies, or NLN calls them task statements, underneath those. Okay, so which CNE review book do you recommend to maximize success on the exam? Great question. And we're going to talk about that, but Billings and Halstead is number 1. Okay, you want to be able to make sure that you are reviewing the content and really the source of the information that you need in order to be successful. So Billings and Halstead, whether you're taking the CNE, CNE Novice, or CNE CL, okay? And then the second resource is going to be Dr. Caputi's review book, okay? That's for the CNE and CNE Novice. And then if you're on the journey for CNE CL, that's Teresa Schallenbarger. We recommend the CNE CL review book. But if you already have her competencies, her CNE CL competency review book, or competency book, I think is what she calls it, that's fine, but you will need one or the other. Okay, excellent question. And then one other testimonial. This again is out on our business site. Does the edition matter? Excellent question. Yes, it does matter. So for Dr. Caputi's review book, you want to get the second edition, and I'll tell you why. There's a whole lot more content on simulation and use of technology and online learning. Okay, so that's why Dr. Caputi's review book, you want the second edition. And then for Billings and Halstead, you do want the 6th edition. Now, if you're like me, I know many of you have been in nursing education for a while. I think I have 4 different editions of Billings and Halstead. The 6th edition, same thing. There's much more content, not only about simulation and online learning, but also flipped classroom as an example. The previous edition, the 5th edition, there wasn't a whole lot of content related to active engagement, but there is a whole lot more content because we know how important that is. So yes, the editions do matter. Thanks for asking that question. And then this last testimony I just want to share, again, talking about our platform. That's another way that we're different. We have an LMS because if you're like me, I can't find all the emails when I'm trying to look for information. And so we want to have a repository that you all can go to at any time. Remember that your access never expires, so that you can have a primary source that you can go to maximize your time, so you're not fumbling through emails trying to figure out where that information was located. What resources do you need to study? Great question. We talked about level 1 or level 2. These are the specific indicators that are really going to help you make a decision about how many resources you need and how much support you need. So based on years of experience, okay, remember our success framework, the fact that if you have less than 3 years of experience, you are going to need additional support. And then of course, if you have more than 3 major gap areas, I would highly encourage you to participate in a live exam review versus a self-paced review. And then competency gaps, of course, and test taking abilities. All right, so this is the screenshot of the resources that I mentioned earlier. You're always going to make sure you have the most current candidate handbook. Again, you're going to retrieve that from the NLN website. And then Dr. Caputi's review book, the 2nd edition, and then the 6th edition of Billings and Halstead. You can purchase these resources on Amazon. You know, Amazon has everything, including textbooks. However, we're all about minimizing the cost whenever possible. Teaching and Nursing is an Elsevier textbook. So if you have a good relationship with Elsevier, I encourage you to reach out to them. See if you can get a desk copy. okay, as an option. Now, I will say I've always kept a copy of Billings and Halstead. I teach primarily in the graduate program in the Nurse Educator Practicum or Nurse Educator track. And I also teach advanced theory. Hence, if you join any of our programs, you will see that I talk often about nursing theory because I think it's just so important. But learning theory is an additional concept that you have to learn in order to be successful on the exam. There are several questions about learning theory that you should expect on all of the CNE exams. So these are the resources for CNE that we recommend, and these are the resources we recommend for CNE-CL. Again, you can see these two options here. You can choose. You don't have to purchase both for CNE-CL, but Teresa's book, either the competency book for the clinical nurse educator or the review book, okay? And in addition to one or the other, you're going to purchase Billings and Halstead. All right, so those are the resources you need. Mindset, remember 20%. When we asked this question in a previous group, we saw again, time was a word that was most often used when we think about the feelings we have about taking the CNE exams. I'm being anxious, terrified. Anybody can relate to that? Yes, there is a new candidate handbook. It is 2022 now, and at the end of the year or beginning of 2023, they probably, or 2024, they'll release a new one. So yes, there's a 2022 handbook, but here's the good news. If you've already printed out the 2021, there are no changes, okay? All they did was updated the year, and I verified that with the commissioner when we were talking about the going into 2023 to help ensure nurse educators were going to be successful and had the most current content. So yes, when you go to the NLN website, just use that, especially since you all, I'm sure, are going to be moving forward, completing the CNE exam in 2023. You want to go ahead and go to the NLN website to print out that candidate handbook, okay, to make sure you have the most current information. Deliberate practice is a concept that I know some of you are familiar with. So just want to talk about how that relates to what your next steps are going to be. Remember, this is all about you and you carving out, using your study worksheet, what your steps are going to be. All right, so let's take a look at the study worksheet. Your objective. So hopefully you've had a chance to write down, what is your purpose for showing up today? You know, and depending on where you are on your journey, it could be a number of reasons. The competency that was discussed, we are going to cover some content. We've already started to introduce some of these concepts. I'm just thinking about what resources you're going to need to help close your knowledge gaps. 5 key takeaways. Hopefully you're able to really nail down what your next steps are going to be. So you can write those here. And then the debrief that will happen after we conclude our time together is you just thinking about what your 7-week study plan is going to look like, okay? You will have access to these presentation slides if you all didn't hear that earlier, but you just want to carve out what are your next steps going to be. You want to be very intentional. Nurse educators that are successful on the CNE exam have a very intentional plan. They identify what are those sub-skills or sub-competency areas that are large gaps for them. You want to start today, if you haven't already, to practice implementing some of these evidence-based teaching strategies into your everyday work. Talking to several faculty this week that are on their journey that have been successful. We posted that on our YouTube channel as well. LaShawn, you'll see her video. She is our second January 2023 cohort from that cohort that have been successful in the 60 days program. So being very focused as you think about your integration of teaching strategies, flipped classroom as an example, into your learning experiences with your students. We are more than 90% likely to retain content and really to gain competency when we put into practice a concept that we've learned about, or we have to teach about that specific concept. And when you think about it, that makes sense. Flipped classroom is one example. If we are able to move forward with implementing that practice into our classroom, when that question shows up on the exam, we're going to have a clear understanding of exactly what that question is talking about, because we would have already reviewed the content, reviewed the literature as it relates to what are the steps to integrate the flipped classroom experience with our students. And then we're going to be able to align the teaching strategy of flipped classroom with Bloom's taxonomy, with learning objectives and what those verbs are. Okay, so that is the goal, that not only are we showing up to the program, whatever that path is going to look like for you, but that we're actually implementing and putting into practice what we are learning about. Nurse educators on this journey, we hear consistently that there are aha moments, which we love to hear about. And then I would say, if you have questions about how to implement a certain teaching strategy, we're always here to help you better understand as well some of those key concepts and key steps in the process. All right, and then feedback is important. You want to be clear about where your knowledge gaps are. Okay, and sometimes when you do a self-assessment, there may be some blind spots. So I encourage you to take a very candid look in the mirror and be very transparent about what your gaps are. And then you want to identify what and who are those resources to help you close your knowledge gaps. One great example is with exam analysis. I will say that exam analysis, curriculum, revision and development, and facilitation of learning tend to be the three largest gap areas. Now, for facilitation of learning, it can be anywhere from 30% to 50% of the exam questions that come from those areas. For CNE CL, it is heavily focused on facilitation of learning, and rightfully so. If we are not able to ensure that learning has happened in an active way, then we know our students are less likely to have the knowledge that they need in order to apply those skills in the clinical setting. Okay, so deliberate practice, achieving that level of excellence and expert practice is really what our goal should be. Taking time to reflect is really important too, so we're clear about our gaps. Let's see. Oh, it tried to go to the video. There's a video, but in the interest of time, we're going to keep going. And then I would say, as you all are moving forward on your journey, let's see. Don't you love technology when it works properly? LaShawn's story, there's just a short clip. Let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, we're good. There's just a short clip that I do want to share about LaShawn's journey. These are, her words, but just wanted to take a listen.
The workbook and doing my videos and doing my reading, I did a lot of writing alongside with that, writing out the blueprint. I wrote out the blueprint at least 2 or 3 times, and just, writing it out and making sure I was connecting those dots, was going through the workbook and doing my
very good. So you can hear, again, you can go out to our YouTube channel and watch the entire episode, but just want to share that clip. Because when we talk about deliberate practice, a big part of it too is using kinesthetic learning, right? Using tactile learning skills. Knoll's adult learning theory talks about the importance of us being able to connect those dots as an adult learner, being self-directed, right? So we're going to engage in that practice because you all are going to do your self-assessment, and then identifying what resources you need to help you be successful on the exam. Just as a reminder, you want to take a look at the eligibility criteria, okay? When it comes to the CNE exam, NLN is very specific about what's required in order for us to be eligible to sit for each of the exams. If you have questions, reach out to NLN. You want to go to them just to clarify any questions that you may have. You do have to meet eligibility criteria at the time of application, okay? And we've talked about the candidate handbook. We've also talked about the format of 150 questions. When you sit for the exam, remember that there is psychometric testing that happens to determine the gap areas. Sure, so the 3 primary gap areas are going to be curriculum, exam analysis, and facilitation of learning, okay? And facilitation of learning, depending on the exam, it can be from 30% of the exam questions up to 50%. Okay, so a significant number of questions on the exam will come from facilitation of learning. So when you sit for the exam, be mindful of the time that you have. Don't be surprised if you sit down and you look at the first few questions and it seems like alphabet soup. All right, the first step we want you to take, and you'll hear LaShawn talk about it in her testimonial, is to take a deep breath, okay? You would have done the work. The 80% work and the 20% work to ensure that you will be successful, okay? We actually have a nurse educator colleague literally taking the exam right now, and I hope to hear from her as soon as we're done. You will receive your scoring report at the exit time, okay? And for me, that created a little bit more anxiety. There is more than one exam version. And they verify that you indeed have been successful and reached that passing threshold at the time of exit. We do know at least one nurse educator colleague, there had to be some additional evaluation of her test results. And so she didn't receive her scoring report right away, but shortly after she did. Many of the questions, not all, are what we call a three-part style question. Okay, for those of you that enjoy writing exam questions, this will look familiar, but there's a stem, so there's a fact that is usually the first part of the question, and then there's a scenario. And then the third part usually is a question related to application. The NLN designs CNE exams to validate that indeed we are able to apply the concepts that we are being tested on. Okay, so just like NCLEX, what we tell our students is the same thing with the NLN exams. When you start reading the questions, though, this is really important. You want to be clear on what the question is asking. Okay, so don't get stuck in part one. Sometimes some of the content in the question really is not related or directly tied to the answer that you should choose. So be very clear about what the question is asking. We maintain integrity of the exam. So when we retrieve our testimonials, we say, very clearly, we don't want to know the exact questions. You can speak generally, and that's what you'll hear from LaShawn. She'll talk about generalizations related to the exam. That's no different than what we share and what's on the exam blueprint. So the question in the chat is, what do you think about the Springer Publishing Certified Nurse Educator Review by Whitman, Price, Godshall, and Wilson? So great question. This is what we would recommend. Our nurse educator colleagues that we support have consistently been successful using the resources we recommend. Okay, Billings and Halstead is what we call our Bible because it has A to Z, everything you could possibly need to know to be a really good nurse educator. Okay, so there's no need for you to buy other resources, and you'll hear it from LaShawn. I think she purchased some practice questions. She didn't need them because NLN, even when I spoke to the commissioner last year, that is the message that they want us to hear. Don't focus on purchasing all of these different practice questions. If you have anxiety, absolutely consider SAE. But the goal is that you're able to spend the 140 hours for the CNE. It's about 70 hours for CNE-CL, focusing on the content. The practice questions are only going to be placed in technology. As an example, I know there's an app out there that has helped some, but they're only going to be placed in these applications or in this software in order to help you verify that you are knowledgeable about that content. Well, the way that question is written and how NLN writes it is probably going to be two different ways. Okay, so going to the primary source to ensure you're closing your knowledge gaps really is the best strategy. All right, but we want to help you achieve your goal, knowing that experience is the best teacher. Doing your self-assessment, being clear about what those knowledge gaps are, really is the best next step for you to move forward on as you fill out your worksheet and carve out what your 7-week study plan is going to look like. All right, so let's take a look at this practice test question, and then we'll wrap up. I appreciate your time. So the faculty member wants to assess the student's ability to complete a health assessment on a CHF patient and is developing a checklist for the assessment evaluation. Which item should be included to best validate students' competency? Okay, so which item? And we're not going to flip to the Zoom poll because I think you all are using Zoom polls. But you can use it for quiz questions, okay, as well as what you all have already participated in, which is who's in the room. All right, so which item would be included to best validate students' competency? So describe the parts of the assessment as A. B is prioritize the care delivered to the patient. C, list the medications expected for this patient. Or D, listening to the lungs in all quadrants, okay. I don't anticipate that you'll have content bolded on your CNE exam. This is simply just to get you in the practice of thinking how to apply some of the concepts that you know as part of your review process. All right, so it looks like which is on the Bible. So that's Billings and Halstead. I call that the Bible for nurse educators. Okay, I'm seeing some D options come through the chat. And a couple of A's. All right, so very good. If you chose D, you are correct. So that's awesome. you were able to connect the specific details needed when it comes to health assessment. We know it's all about demonstration, right? So listening is really important. It allows the student's ability to apply skills and knowledge using psychomotor and cognitive. Okay. Quadrants, yeah, it can be confusing. So yes, quadrants and lung fields, yes, it's the same. And I would say that's a good question though. Don't let the terms distract you, all right? Whether it's quadrants, fields, it's all about an assessment, right, for a heart failure patient. So just honing in on exactly what the question is asking of you so that you can put the pieces together, choose the right option and be successful. And we always like celebrating your success.
Sellars.
As I mentioned, you definitely want to go to our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. We have now, I think it's 100 episodes. We publish a new episode every single week. We map it back to the competencies as well, okay? Facilitation of learning. Remember, I said there are at least 30 to 50% of content that is tied to facilitation of learning. So that's a big focus for us. Masterclass. I want to talk a little bit about what your next step should be and how to move forward. These are all options based on where you are on your journey is what I want you to think about, okay? If you are a tactile, visual, auditory learner that is able to engage and connect in person more than virtually, you want to consider an in-person event, okay? And I don't know how many are really opening up across the country, but we have our masterclass here in Greensboro every single summer. Wanted to just put a plug in with a picture of how beautiful Grandover Resort is. So if you're in the Greensboro area, highly recommend you consider spending a day or two because there is also a reduced rate. And for those of you, I appreciate you all staying on because today we're actually offering an incentive. Not sure if you all know, but March 19th is National Certified Day, National Certification Day. And we want to celebrate that with you all because we know that your time is precious. So right now, for the next 30 minutes or so, you can go to our website and you can choose any product you want, any new product. So not any products you've already purchased, but any new product, and you put in the word certified, and you will receive that 15% reduction on any of the services on our website. Okay, again, that's only going to go, first of all, it's just for those of you that are live here because it will expire for those of you watching the replay within the next 30 minutes. So Grandover, great place to be, beautiful, it'll be great weather, June 2nd. The other benefit of the master class, the in-person as well as CNE in 60 days is we bundle the resources. Okay, so you'll see right here in this image, we ship all of the resources you need. Okay, for the masterclass, those that show up will receive their resources in person. That again is one of the contributing factors for many of us, whether it was 8 years for me, 2 years for you all, or even longer, or maybe shorter. One of the biggest derailers for me was not knowing what resources to purchase and not wanting to go through the headache of tracking it down. Okay, and then we have our monthly boot camp, which I talked about. Again, that's a 15% incentive right now in honor of trying to move towards getting, hopefully, tripling the number of nurse educators that we have supported. We doubled the number of nurse educators we supported from 2022, no, from 2021 to 2022. So we want to triple the number year over year. CNE in 60 days, our next cohort, as I mentioned, will start in June. We meet for about an hour and a half. We have 100% success rate. And again, you receive all of your resources to your front door. You all have seen Ms. Bailey's testimonial on our website. And then we're going to close out with some review of content. All right. So first, I want to talk about the success framework. Experience is the foundation. Make sure you have the right resources. Okay. This is a framework we developed based on feedback from focus groups and nurse educators that were successful. And then you want to have a support system. That's that community that we were talking about. Having consistent support to help you close your knowledge gaps is a critical step in the process. This is just an example of resources after every single competency that we review. Also in our YouTube episodes, you will hear us talk about referring back to these primary resources, okay? Because remember, I know you all know what I'm going to say by now. This is about maximizing the time that you have, right? We don't want you spending time trying to figure out, should I use this textbook? Where am I going to find this information? For Boyer's model, these are the specific page numbers and chapters that we want you to focus on, okay? And we go through that as part of our program review. Hallmarks of excellence. If you haven't heard about these, you want to write these down on your worksheet. These have been uniquely developed and revised by NLN to reflect all of the competencies that we as nurse educators, and really as a nurse educator program, or as a nursing program, to achieve excellence. Okay, so we want to use these hallmarks really as a checklist to ensure that we are establishing a solid nursing program that is going to help students be successful as they move through the nursing curriculum and nursing program. So facilitation of learning, just some quick tips, because I want you all to walk away with some content. This is related to competency 1 and 2 for CNE and CNE novice, and then for CNE CL, it spans across 3 different competencies. So what do you need to know when I talk about learner facilitation? Looking at learning styles or preferences, learning objectives, and facilitation of learning. Okay, so learning styles. One example is with the VARC acronym. I know many of you are familiar with that. What you need to know, first of all, is what is the definition of that framework, whether it's VARC is the preferred learning style model, and we know that's taught to sensory, or it is Knoll's adult learning theory. Whatever that theory is, whatever that framework, understand what the definition is, okay? And that would include the tenets or the concepts associated with that framework. And then second of all, you want to make sure that you're able to map back teaching strategies, okay, to that specific learning theory, as well as evaluation strategies and the level associated with both of those. Okay, so I'm going to say that one more time, and then I'll answer some questions in the chat. So what you need to be knowledgeable about as it relates to learning styles, okay, are the different frameworks, okay, as well as the teaching strategies and the evaluation strategies, and aligning them with the second column here, which is Bloom's taxonomy, the level that happens with that teaching strategy or evaluation strategy, the level of learning that's expected to happen. Let me give you an example. For our students, we know that our profession and our nursing students have to be able to apply the concepts that we teach them. So as an example, we would expect our semester 1 students to be able to competently check a blood pressure, right? That's kinesthetic, right? They're going to engage in visual learning and reading because they have to read about the steps that's involved. And of course, we're going to lecture to students about it. Well, we want to map that to the cognitive learning domain, and that's going to be the lowest level, which is knowledge. Students have to be able to have, or remembering. So students have to remember what are the steps associated with taking a vital blood pressure, and what are those normal ranges as well. Okay, and so you can see with that specific example, I want to be clear about what that teaching strategy is, how it is mapped to a framework, a learning style preference framework, as well as the teaching strategy and evaluation strategy, and how it aligns with the different learning domains and the level for that Bloom's taxonomy. All right, and then I would say, if that's fuzzy for you, Appendix A, as you see here, as well as Table 14.1 in Billings and Halstead, goes over learning theory as well as nursing theory, okay? And then with learning objectives, we always want them to be student-centered, because it's not about what we're going to teach. It's about what we are going to help our students learn. We validate that learning has happened whenever we engage in discussions with our students, or they take an exam, or we simply may have learning circles with our students where they learn from each other, okay? So can you repeat the YouTube channel? Yes, it's Dr. Sellars Educate. That's our YouTube channel. And put the question back up. So yes, if you all want to stay on, I'll be happy to go back and put the question back up. But just in the interest of time, we're going to keep moving forward. But I can stay on for another 30 minutes if you all are available, but I just want to be respectful of everybody's time and get through our content. All right. And then exam analysis. I mentioned that was a large gap area for many as well. And someone has to drop off. Yes. Okay, very good. So yes, if August is a better time, definitely understand. Exam analysis, we talk about the specific psychometric testing components associated with exam analysis. And these are the two things that you want to know, okay, about exam analysis. First, what is the definition? As an example, point by serial, it tells us whether or not a specific question was able to discriminate between those high scoring students and the low scoring students. So it discerns the difference between those, okay? And then the second part we want to know is what is the range associated with that specific psychometric testing measure, all right? So we talked through all of those key elements related to exam analysis. And then curriculum. Remember, I said there are 3 primary gap areas that many nurse educators have, and I just want to touch on some of the content from each of them. And then when we operationalize the curriculum is one expectation for us to know the 3 primary types of curriculum, which are concept-based, the traditional or blocked by system curriculum, or competency-based education curriculum, where students are expected to master a skill and knowledge in order for them to progress to the next assignment. Okay, and I'm actually attending a workshop tomorrow at Duke University that's sponsored by AACN and looking at a competency-based education curriculum. So I'm excited to hear about updated evidence supporting that model. So we want to ensure there's congruence between the clinical agency, the students' experiences, and the curriculum or the content that we're teaching in the class. We want those assignments to be meaningful and to align. That's how we ensure that students are able to develop critical thinking skills and have strong clinical judgment skills as well. All right, so I know this was a lot of information in a short amount of time. Hopefully this is not your feeling. If this is your feeling, know that we are here to help you every step of the way. As we said, Certified Nurses Day is March 19th, and our commitment is to continue to be a part of the journey to support your success. And so you can go again to our website and just type in certified as your code, and you'll be able to take advantage of that incentive. But you all are moving forward and taking action because, again, I know you didn't show up today because you had nothing else to do. Fill out the steps that you are moving forward with today. That is my biggest message for you as we close out our time together. Use the worksheets. Even if you're going to YouTube channel, after today, over this weekend, make sure you're printing out a worksheet. That is how you're going to stay focused to ensure you have a clear understanding about what your next steps are going to be. It's okay if the practice questions are foreign language to you and it sounds like alphabet soup. That is perfectly normal given where you are on your journey, okay? But we don't want you to stay there. So pick your package, whatever your pathway is going to look like. Know that we're here to support your success. The only step that you need to focus on taking right now today is to debrief, because we've talked about so much information and I don't want you to get overwhelmed. Printing out your NLN candidate handbook is important because that's going to help you identify where your knowledge gaps are related to all competencies. And always, you can reach us on our website. We have our contact button there, and I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions that you all have. And I'll go back to that practice question. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.